everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, I am back. I had a lovely retreat down to Greenville, South Carolina. I went to the Monet and Van Gogh immersive experience. It was very cool. I highly recommend it if it comes to your area. It was actually in DC a few months ago, but we missed it, and my very sweet and thoughtful and supportive man was like, would you like to go to South Carolina to see it? So we drove all the way down there for a 2-hour experience, but the whole trip was amazing. And you know, you're with a good person, you're with your right person when you can drive all the way from South Carolina to Maryland and not even turn on the radio because we enjoyed each other's company. Anyway, just wanted to share some good things going on. The world is insane, and you got to find the bright points. You got to find the things that bring joy into your life. And my very caring and thoughtful man brings me joy. That exhibit brought me joy. Seeing some of my favorite paintings blown up to the size of a wall was pretty amazing, because you can really see the brush strokes, which is the thing that I'm obsessed with, and I'm forever setting off alarms in museums because of it. My cats are chasing each other. If you hear something that sounds like thunder, that's just two Siamese cats going crazy. Anywho, I am feeling a surge of inspiration having gone to that amazing exhibit, and I'm looking forward to getting painting again and doing some brush work. There's going to be definitely more brush work because the painting that I did last Friday is still wet. It is Thursday. I'm working in my basement and it's chilly down here, and it is taking forever to dry. And I should show you, when it takes a long time to dry, weird things can happen. So if it dries too quickly, it can crack, but when it takes over a week to dry, I am getting some weird kind of flocculation things going on. It wasn't like that for the first couple of days, but that's what's happening now. It really broke up on me. So I'm gonna see how this painting dries. I need to come up with something. I need to come up with something. Some kind of way to protect these paintings, because I had to cover it so that the cats wouldn't jump on it and so dust wouldn't fall on it when I walk around upstairs, because there's no drywall on the ceiling. I'm in a basement, and I'm gonna have to devise some kind of way to protect it from dust and cat hair and cat paws, but still allow enough circulation where it's not taking over a week to dry. We'll see. I don't know if it's just the temperature or the lack of circulation. I did try to make sure that there was some air getting in there, but there it is. New problems to find solutions for. The colors that we are using today for my base coat and background, I have a mix of Amsterdam Brilliant Blue with a bit of the titanium white added to it. I just wanted to lighten that up a bit. This color is the DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in Berry, and this color is a mix of the Americana Decor Matte Metallics in Silver with a touch of berry added to it, and it made this really beautiful, not quite lavender, but it's a very muted pinkish purple. Hopefully you can see that. Still working on figuring out the proper lighting. You can see the consistency that we're working with here. It is making a mound, but it's disappearing pretty quickly. I have mixed 1 part paint, yes, 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. To that, I've added some water until I get the consistency that I'm looking for. And yeah, that's what's happening there. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art Inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, exact paint brand, color, consistency, the technique, of course, all of the things that I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this technique. Here at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And then these two boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use some of the colors or all of the colors, and you can mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, GinaDeLuca.net, and also at Amazon.com. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is put about 2 ounces of my background / base coat color in a cup to make sure I have enough for my pour. And then I'm going to lay down my base coat. You'll notice I've already covered my edges. I do that, and I'm leaving a bit in my cup. I cover my edges first because I am using a pretty thin mix. It is about a 2 on my consistency scale, and I am using Floetrol. That combination can lead to not fantastic coverage on my sides. So instead of having to go back later and touch it up and maybe have to try to color match, because this is a custom blended base coat, going back and color matching can be a challenge. But the reason we lay down the base coat is we want the paints to slide around evenly and easily. And if you do not have a base coat, if your canvas is dry, something has to stick to the canvas first, and that is going to be your poured puddle. And what can happen is your puddle can have some really cool things happening on the very edges, especially in a straight pour. And the paint on the edges of your puddle will be the first thing that sticks to the canvas. And then the center of your puddle will roll over the edges. And so you will lose everything on your edges. And I like to give myself as many options as possible when it comes to composition. One of the reasons that I use the same color base coat as I do background color is because if I want to have negative space, this will allow me to do that easily. But also, you can get little tiny bubbles in your base coat, which I will pop right now, but some will still remain. Burning 2 times, never starts the first try. But some of the bubbles will remain. And if I were using, say, a white base coat, and I have no white in my painting, those little tiny white bubbles will be popping up, little tiny cells. It brings the paint with it. All right, my base coat is down, and now to put some paint in a cup. Always be sure to check your consistency before pouring it in your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. So I am going to pour from up high, and I'm going to let these paints sink and churn. If you are not comfortable with pouring from up high the way I just did. I was a bartender, so, you know, I kind of got used to that. But you can always practice in your sink with water to just get used to that motion. I like for it to have that nice plopping sound when it's going in. Typically what happens is the last color that I put in, a bit of that gets to the very, very bottom of the cup. And that becomes the last bit that comes out. So I like to, this is why I reserved some paint. I like to have the most contrast between my background / base coat color and the last color that I put in the cup. So if I'm using a dark background, I will use the lightest color last, and if I'm using a light background, I put the darkest color last. And that will give me the most contrast in my focal point. Okay, I think I'm just going to do a plain straight pour, traditional straight pour. Let me pop these bubbles again. All right. I think these colors are going to come out very pretty. Let's make a mess, shall we? Oh, hi, Tucker. I'm just kind of moving the cup a little bit to just kind of disperse those colors a bit more. Now, getting to the end of my cup, this part is kind of important because this is going to be the focal point. I have some of that silver berry blend coming out. I am doing a little bit of ring action here in the very center because I want to have a focal point. I'm going to change directions a couple of times, and that will actually kind of give me a very rose-like effect. And the center gets very stretched out, so that's why I try to pay very close attention to that. It doesn't look like much right now, but it will definitely stretch out and become something. I am still trying to figure out how I set my stuff up. Pardon me while I dig for a tool. Just going to just a little bit. Okay. All right. I'm liking these colors so far, and it's interesting that silver and berry blend is actually looking almost peach colored against that blue. It looked lavender in the cup, and now it's kind of having a bit of a peachy look. So I am going to let this paint puddle percolate. This is where patience is your friend. Okay, I'm going to pop these bubbles. So just like how the air bubbles in your base coat, the air bubbles in your base coat are not your friend, because it's going to bring those air bubbles up and it's going to bring paint with it. But in your puddle, it's a good thing. It is good to have those little air bubbles in there, because in this area, all of the paints that are lying underneath, it'll have bubbles in it. And as I pop those bubbles, more cells will pop up. And if I allow them to pop up now, you'll see as I pop, I get these little tiny bubbles coming up. And as these paints come up, the matte paints, which are the DecoArt paints, have a hydrophobic effect when used with a glossier paint, which is the Amsterdam. It's going to push the Amsterdam paint away, and so these little teeny tiny cells get bigger. If that was what would happen with your base coat, it wouldn't be such a terrible thing, because that would look cool. And if you use DecoArt, like satin enamels, as, you know, mixed with another paint as your base coat, you will get cells popping up through your painting. So the two kinds of cells we have going on here. These are what I call boulder cells. When I stretch them, they're going to have a very 3D look. These I call pop-up cells because they kind of pop up later. After I stretch this, there will be more popping up, and they have a more uniform look to them than the boulder cells, which have a very organic, almost boulder-like appearance, which is how I got. That's why I named it boulder cells, because they look like boulders. Okay, so this is looking a little bit dry right here, so let me just give that a bit of a touch up so it doesn't fight me. And I'm actually just going to kind of give these sides a little bit of a swipe because they can set up a bit as they sit, and it will make it harder for your paints to slide off the edge. They won't slide off as evenly. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. I can see this little area right here is drying out, and you can actually kind of see how it's not letting it spread as evenly. Just going to touch that up. All right, I think we're good to go. I have enough cells here. More will pop up. I would love to keep some of this blue. It got all swallowed up in my last painting, and you can't even tell that there was blue in it. I would love to keep some of that. So we'll see what happens. Let's tilt this baby. Right, going to come back to the center and hit that opposite corner. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going a little too fast. If you find that you've laid down a base coat and your edges are, or your puddle is rolling over itself, either A, your base coat is drying out on you, or B, you're tilting too fast, like I am. But in all truth, I'm not planning on keeping that edge in that corner. Now, I'm going to bring the paint back to center before I change directions. I'm going to use the weight of my paint to push the other paints around how I like them. the weight of your paint is going to be where it is moving fastest. So you can almost make a corner if you are careful about your tilting process and managing the weight of your paint. And if your corners aren't perfect, it's okay, you can touch them up. And again, going to come across and catch that last corner. You can see that's almost a corner right there. Almost. Okay. Now I'm going to bring it back to center. And adjust my composition. I don't typically like for my focal point to be in the center unless I am doing something very symmetrical, like a spiral. So I'm just going to adjust my focal point. Okay. I like how this is looking. I am not going to torch this. I know I'm going to have more cells popping up in this corner, but I would love to keep some of that blue. So I'm not going to encourage those paints to come up by popping the bubbles. If I were using a glossy pouring medium, like Liquitex or something of that nature, I would have to pop these bubbles because they will leave pits in the finished painting. But because I am using Floetrol, which is it's basically designed to be a work time extender, but also it eliminates brush marks, so it's kind of better at self-leveling. But because it's more of a matte finish, I don't get pits if there are still bubbles. So I don't have to pop these bubbles. It will be fine. So I'm going to let this sit and do what it's going to do and pray that I get to keep some of this blue, because that contrast is absolutely gorgeous. And if it doesn't work, then I will have to just do this again and adjust my ratios, because I'm actually kind of in love with this color palette. Really, really interesting how that sterling silver, or is it just silver? Yeah, just silver, which looked too gray to me. So I added some pink to it to kind of make the colors have a more unified look, and it looked like a pinkish purple in the cup, and now up against this blue it looks peach. It's a very interesting effect. Anywho, so I'm going to let this sit and do what it's going to do, and I will bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. Lost a lot of that blue and don't know how much more of it I will lose. I feel like when it's taking so long to dry and to get a skin on it so it stops changing, Like, the longer it has to be able to change, the more it's going to. And I think maybe theoretically that's what happened to the last one. Not really sure how I'm gonna keep that from happening to this one, but I'll try to get creative. But I love how this came out. Like, if it just stayed like this and didn't change, I'd be very, very happy. I would like to keep that blue. But got some very pretty cells. Some awesome boulder effect going on there. And then this wild peach color. It's kind of looking a bit more, no, it still looks peach. Never mind. I'll take it back. But yeah, I mean, that looks like peach. Wild. It looked so purple in the cup. And I love how these colors blended for my center. Got that cool focal area going. So if you recall how tiny that area was when I did that center, like, that's why it's important. It really does stretch out a lot and makes a big difference paying attention to that area. But there it is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I think, you know, if it continues to take this long to get these paintings to dry, because I have limited space here, so maybe what I'll do is like Fluid Art Fridays, and then, you know, the rest of the week kind of play around with a lot of other different mediums. I have a lot of paintings to embellish. I have block print stuff that I can work with and actually use that to embellish paintings. Yeah, so I'm gonna play around. I'm gonna play around, but I think my goal is to upload a fluid art piece on Fridays, and then whatever else the the drying gods allow me to produce. But yes, anyway, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, so do check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Boy, is that appreciated. My affiliate links and coupon codes, if you use those links, I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. And also, you know, you can get some discounts yourself. You'll also find the link to my website, ginadeluca.net, where you can find the fluid art inspiration cards and my art and my music for sale. And the cards are also on Amazon. And you'll find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions. Good times had by most. It is the internet after all. That looks good. I love these colors together. All right, that's it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.